How's it going, beautiful people? We're going to go over the kettlebell Romanian deadlift, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to use a kettlebell to lift up from the hips. This looks kind of similar to a squat. A lot of people mix this up, but the big difference when it comes to a deadlift as opposed to a squat is that the deadlifts focus on the hips. Now, deadlift can sound like a scary word, so easier think of it like hinging or pushing your hips back. That's all it really is. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to mess up your back with this exercise. In fact, it is phenomenal for strengthening your lower back. So what you're going to focus on is, remember, pushing the hips back. Your knees are going to slightly bend, but not by much, okay? So be mindful of hips more, a little bit only on the knees. Setting up the kettlebell or dumbbell is key for this exercise. You want to have the right leverage of the kettlebell so that way it doesn't put that much pressure on your back. So the big key here is you want to put the kettlebell right in the middle of your foot, right? So in between your legs, right below your groin, right in the middle of your foot. So right now it's a little bit closer to my toes. I want this to be midline of the foot. So this is almost where the lace is, where you would tie your laces. That's where you want the kettlebell to be, at that level of your feet. Okay, you're gonna hold it here at the top of the kettlebell. Feet about shoulder width or a little bit wider than the hips width, toes slightly outward. I'm gonna push my hips back. Now, if I had a wall behind me, my butt would touch the wall before my heels do, okay? So think about pushing the wall or pushing somebody back with your butt, okay? That's the big key here. You want to push those hips back, and as you push them back, you're automatically going to feel a stretch on the hamstrings, on the glutes, and your knees are going to bend slightly. So I got the kettlebell right below my hips, right below the groin basically, pushing those hips back, feet flat on the ground, hands grabbing the kettlebell. Now in this position, it can be very easy to bend the lower back. Not necessarily wrong, but you do want to get into the good habit of strengthening the lower back. So I'll show you what my lower back means rounded and when it's straight. Right now, it's rounded, okay? But if I focus on pushing my hips back, it becomes straight. It can be very easy to let go of your balance when you push those hips back. So you can adjust that with your foot placement. Sometimes a little bit too close might make it a little bit more challenging. So having a comfortable stand is important. Push those hips back, bend the knees slightly. So hands are going to be touching the front of your hips. Push those hips back about midway through the shins. Your end point when you're doing the Romanian deadlift, your hands or your palms should be about midway through the shins. So the top of the kettlebell should be right about here, midway through the shins. That is your ending motion. That's the most comfortable range of motion for most people. If it's right below the knees, that's okay. Just work on getting further into the deadlift or the hip hinge as you do it. But in general, you want to try to get to that mid shin point. So remember, the top of the kettlebell is going to be halfway through the shin. Push the hips forward. Keep your back straight. So remember how I told you I was going to show you lower back bend? So this is my lower back bend, right? And keeping it straight, almost like you're sticking your butt out. My back now is straight. Another big important feature about this is that you want to make sure that the weight is coming up straight and down straight. So you don't want the weight to swing while you're doing it. And you do that by making sure that your hands are always touching your hips at the top part and when you come down. So when you come up and when you come down, your hands are always going to finish in the same exact spot. Think about placing the weight right at the point where you tie your shoes. That's that nice center line. And that's how you do the kettlebell Romanian deadlift.